Alrighty. Good evening, folks. Thanks for your patience as we took care of a couple quick things. It's 6:05 p.m. I'm going to call the meeting for Missoula City Council to order on September 15th, 2025. Before we get started with our agenda, if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, it's nice to see everybody here this evening. Thank you very much. Before I ask Ms. Trimble to do roll call, I would like to just again, thanks folks for being down here in City Council chambers tonight. And I would also like to thank folks that are offering a secure place for us to continue to hold these important meetings. There's been an incredible amount of attention given to violent and political violence in recent times and over the last few months. And I just want to say, starting this meeting, that the city of Missoula does not condone political violence of any shape or stripe. And that I do believe that there are some city council members that would wish to address this, and I would ask you to do that during your council comments. Thank you. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and get started with our meeting, and I'll ask Ms. Trimble to do a roll call, please.
Good evening. Beginning with Anderson.
Present.
Becerra.
Present.
Campbell.
Here.
Carlino.
Present.
Farmer.
Present.
Jones.
Present.
Jordan.
Present.
Melson.
Present.
Nugent.
Present.
Cheryl.
Present.
And Vasika.
Present.
And everyone's here. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. So our next order of business is approval of minutes, and council, you have minutes from September 8th, 2025. Does anybody have any questions or changes to those minutes? All right, not seeing any. Then we'll go ahead and let those minutes stay as submitted. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to our item number 3, which is our committee schedule for this coming Wednesday, September 17th. Ms. Trimble, would you go ahead and walk us through the committee schedule, and are there any changes?
There are no changes, but this is a rather unusual committee schedule, so I'd like to draw everyone's attention to a couple of points. First of all, we have a long day. We will be starting at 8 a.m., so that's a little bit earlier than our normal start time. We have 2 items of regular business for committees, and then we will take a short break from 10:40 to 11 o'clock. And at that time, we will re-engage as a special meeting of the City Council that was properly called in order to address the Old Post Hospital demolition permit appeal. So that will go from 11 a.m. until business is concluded or adjourned to another time. We have scheduled it for 11 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that. All information for those upcoming committee meetings are on the City Council agenda website. All right, next we'll move on to special presentations and proclamations. And this evening we have 3 neighborhood council updates. So we will start with the University District Leadership Team report. Come on up, and if you'll say your name for the record, that would be great. I'll turn on the microphone for you.
Hi, everyone hear me? Okay. Hi, let me introduce myself. My name is Amy O'Hoyt. I was in the Northside Westside University team, or Northside Westside neighborhood team for about 4 years prior to moving to the University District last year. So I'm very happy to now be on their team, and it's been a wonderful first couple months with them. We just had our big meeting actually last Wednesday, and it was kind of a testament to where we put our money. We ended up doing a direct mailer out to the entire neighborhood, And then we also got some big posters and we put them out everywhere, and we had a massive turnout, massive for us. I had over 100 people, which was really cool to see. It was really cool that we got the surveys from everyone, and we'll be kind of filtering through those, and that will kind of give us our marching orders for 2020, the rest of this year in 2026. We also had Bob Marshall of Big A Pizza out, so that also maybe brought in a few extra people, as that tends to do. We had some wonderful presentations during the meeting. We had our city council, Gwen Jones was there, Daniel Carlino, Mike Nugent was there. Everyone gave kind of a pitch about what's kind of going on within the year. Then we also had Leslie Webb at the University of Montana, and Jody Pilgrim from the Missoula Parking Commission, and Bill Donovan from UN Parking. Parking is a big deal for us with the university, so that was kind of, I think, the highlight and kind of where we heard the most feedback was from Jody and Bill. And bless Jody, she stayed until like an hour after taking questions, so that was really cool to see. Ben Carson from Urban Forestry was there, and so that was really awesome too. We've got a lot of trees, specifically in Bonner Park, that people had a few comments on. And then we gave a presentation for a program that we've started called Map Your Neighborhood, and that in a consensus of that is basically saying within any kind of emergency, the importance of knowing your direct neighbor. So yes, you've got the city and you guys are going to do everything else, any kind of natural emergency, but knowing your next door neighbor, they need insulin, or they've got a young baby, or they cannot walk, anything like that. And so we got some good feedback on that as well. Nextly, for the end of our fiscal year in 25, we decided that we would put our money towards a few projects. One of them was the intersection of 5th and 6th Street in Hilda. We've had a lot of feedback on safety concerns about crossing the streets. And so we replenished a flag program. It's a reflective flag. So when you cross the streets in the dark, people can see you. And that has been, I mean, it's an interesting concept for safety, but it works. I think it gives people a peace of mind. And we've heard great things, so we replenished those flags. And then additionally, we voted to allocate funds for Parks and Recreation to install bear-resistant trash pads for Jacobs Island. And that's kind of where we landed with our budget. And we'll see kind of from the survey of our meeting last week where we go for 26.
Wow, that's excellent. There's lots of great activity happening. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Did I get your last name? Is it Oak Point?
Ohoyt. Yes,
Ohoyt.
Amy Ohoyt. Yes.
Ohoyt. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the excellent report and all the activity. Any questions or comments, Ms. Ohoyt? All right. Well, not seeing any, thank you very much for your participation with the leadership team and the neighborhood council, being part of local government. Thank you.
Absolutely. For letting me bring Joe.
Yeah, it's great to have you. We'll see you back here at another time for sure. Yeah, come on back anytime. All right. Great. Next we have Heart of Missoula's leadership team. Heart of Missoula neighborhood. Happen to be here tonight? Okay. Not seeing Heart of Missoula. There is, I do believe, an agenda item. So there is a report. And I'm not seeing any hands raised. Just checking here. I'm not seeing any hands raised, but there is an update on the council agenda for folks to take a look at there. If they want to be able to review what some of the activities are from the Heart of Missoula leadership team. Okay. I will then move on to the Franklin to Fort leadership team and come on up whenever you're ready. We'll hear your report, please. Thank you.
Hello. So thanks for having me. My name is Will Whittle Frazier. I'm on here on behalf of the Franklin to the Fort leadership team with just a brief update on what we've been up to. So lately, the Franklin to the Fort leadership team partnered with the Franklin to the Fort Neighbors in Action to host the Resiliency Fair. This was formerly known as the Franklin to the Fort Block Party, and this was on August 27th in Franklin Park. We had a great turnout, and the organizations that tabled had in-depth and meaningful conversations with attendees about building resiliency in the neighborhood. The leadership team has created and improved our neighborhood action plan earlier this year. The next few months will be focused on setting goals for the upcoming year, which will be informed by the action plan. And finally, the team is also keeping tabs on the various planning efforts in the neighborhood and are advocating for more green space and affordable housing. And that is our brief update. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whittle Frazier. Appreciate your participation and the report, all the great activities. I heard a lot of positive feedback from the event in Franklin Park. Sorry I couldn't be there, but I hear it was a really nice gathering, as they usually are.
It was a great time, yeah.
Yeah, I bet. Any other comments or questions? Yes, please, Councilor Vasika.
I just wanted to say thank you. You and Clint and everyone else of the leadership team are always so great at getting everybody together. It's always such a fun time. I'm really bummed I wasn't able to make it to that one. So
Oh, you're totally fine. And of course, I gotta give thanks to the Neighbors in Action team there. They do a lot of the work for that one, but I appreciate the thanks. Thank
yeah,
you.
keep up the great work.
Great.
Thank you, Councilor Vasika. Appreciate that. And thanks again. All right. So thank you all very much for coming down to be part of council. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Jordan, go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to echo what my colleague Sandy said. The resiliency, the meeting, or I'm losing my word, was really well done. And I just really appreciate how much Franklin to the Fort feels like a neighborhood. And it's because of the leadership team and the Franklin to the Fort Neighbors in Action. And I just wanted to give a big shout out to them and their work and for putting on a really great event. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilor Jordan. All right. Really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. We'll carry forward with agenda item number 4, which is a proclamation, and it's a proclamation for National Voter Registration Day. So I'll go ahead and start reading that. And Claire will bring that on screen. Thank you. So, whereas voting is the foremost right and responsibility of citizens of the United States of America, and active and engaged citizens, regardless of gender, ethnicity, or political affiliation, are the foundation of democracy. And whereas for any democracy to work, all eligible citizens must be able to vote for their representatives without barriers in free and fair elections. And whereas the hallmark of good citizenship is community participation, including informed voting in every election in which a ballot is received. And whereas good citizenship includes respecting other points of view, keeping an open mind, and taking care of one another. And whereas a thriving democracy includes governments that are open, transparent, inclusive, and equitable. Now, therefore, I, Andrea Davis, Mayor of the City of Missoula in the state of Montana, hereby recognize the 16th day of September 2025 as National Voter Registration Day. Citizens are encouraged to remind friends and family to vote. We join the League of Women Voters of Missoula in reminding citizens to check their voter registration at myvoterpagemt.com to ensure they are ready and able to vote in the upcoming election. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So that is our one and only proclamation. We do not have any public hearings this evening, nor do we have new business. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. And Ms. Trimble, when you're ready, please go ahead and read the consent agenda, share that on screen, and we'll go from there.
All right, on this evening's consent agenda, we begin with a motion to approve accounts payable or claims for checks dated September 16th, 2026 in the amount of $1,406,220.34. We have a motion to approve and authorize the mayor to sign a contract with Jackson Constructor Group for $105,700, including a 5% contingency for additional work that must be approved by the Missoula Water staff. We have a motion to setting a public hearing on October 6, 2025 to approve an ordinance amending section 10.52.140A3, penalties regarding parking violations, and this constitutes the first reading of that ordinance. We have a motion setting a public hearing for October 6, 2025, and to preliminarily adopt an ordinance amending the Missoula Municipal Code Title II, Chapter 2.80, which is Section 2.80.030, continuous residency requirement for the fire department, that requires every individual employed by the city as a firefighter to reside either within the city of Missoula or within an area located no more than 60 road miles from any city of Missoula fire station, and this constitutes the first reading. We have a motion setting a public hearing for Monday, September 22nd, 2025, to review the City of Missoula Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, known as the CAPER, for HUD-funded programs for program year 2024. We have a motion, two related to the Eaton Addition 5-lot minor subdivision. First is a motion to approve the variance request from the city subdivision regulations, section 3-030.1.C3, to allow proposed lots 2 and 3 to not directly abut a public or private street or road. And we have a motion to approve the Eaton Addition 5-lot minor subdivision preliminary plat application subject to the recommended conditions of approval based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law in the staff report. And finally, this evening, we have a motion to adopt a resolution initiating amendments to the Missoula City zoning regulations, zoning map, and subdivision regulations in the form of a new unified development code and new zoning map and minor amendments to the Our Missoula land use plan in order to enhance consistency.
Excellent, Claire. Thank you very much. Okay. So items on the consent agenda have been approved in prior committee meetings. They are included on the consent agenda as one item in order to save time during council meetings. We do ask for public comment if there's any public comment on items on the agenda, on the consent agenda, to come on up and provide that now. Public comment are limited to 3 minutes each. I'll go ahead and time you up here, and if there's any comments on the consent agenda, come on up. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody in the audience. Is there anybody online that wishes to make a public comment on the consent agenda? Any item on the consent agenda? Okay, I'm not seeing any online either. Are there any items councilors wish to separate? Okay, I'm not seeing any, then we can go ahead and do a voice vote, Ms. Trimble. Thank you.
All right, voting on this evening's consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously.
Okay, great. Thank you. That wraps up item 8. We'll move on to number 9, which is regular business. These are regular business of the city council committees, and we do have one regular business item placed on regular business, and that is 9.1.C, Committee of the Whole Committee Report. And we were asked to place it on the committee reports in order for there to be council comment on it when the vote comes. So we had a presentation on this last Wednesday, and I don't believe there's any new information, but I'll check in with the lead sponsor here, Councilor Nugent, to see if there's anything that you'd like to say to tee up this item.
No new information, and I'm happy to speak to it now. Or...
Well, you know what? Yeah, I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Do it now.
We had a great committee meeting. We had several guests from the community just talking about the important impact of the potential reorganization of the United States Forest Service in Western Montana and what that would mean to our economy. And I think that I think it's important to stress that conversation acknowledges that there's always room for efficiencies and that it's not opposed to reorganization, but rather wants to express to our federal delegation the importance of having those conversations transparently in the public. Because once things like, a lab leave town, they're not going to come back. And I think we need to make sure we're paying attention to that. Other than that, I think I'll let the committee meeting from Wednesday speak for itself, but if any of my colleagues want to speak to it, that's just fine.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other sponsors that wish to speak to this prior to council comment? It'd just be your council comment now.
Do you want me to put the motion on the floor?
Yeah, that
though?
would be great.
Just, okay.
Let's do it.
I think that, and I would just say that I think that we all spoke to this in real detail on Wednesday, and I appreciate it being brought forward, and I'm happy to be a sponsor. With that, I'm going to recommend that we adopt a resolution of the Missoula City Council calling for transparency in the United States Forest Service reorganization and supporting the continued presence of federal employees in Missoula County, urging Montana's federal and state delegation to recognize the economic and community impact of federal workforce reductions and to actively advocate for local needs throughout the reorganization process.
Excellent. Thank you very much, President Cheryl. Are there any public comments on this agenda item? If there are any public comments, please come on up to the microphone now. Okay, I'm not seeing any public comments on this agenda item. How about in the audience? And not in the audience, online. Not seeing any online either. Okay, we'll bring it back to council for council comment. Council comment before we take a vote. Councilor Vasika.
Thank you. So I'm the reason this is on committee reports, and I do everything that Mike said today, and the majority of things that were said last Wednesday, I absolutely do believe in. I totally believe in transparency, especially 100% when it comes to government. I do think that those should be on the those conversations should take place in public and a public way so that everybody can have their input. There are some parts of the resolution that I disagree with, and I did try to get those changed on Wednesday through amendments, and those did not pass. So I'm not fully on board with the entirety of the written out with the language in the resolution. That's why I'm not fully in support of it, and I don't like putting my name on something I'm not really confident in. So I do believe in the spirit of the resolution, and but I just don't agree with a lot of the it seems like it's a lot of wage preservation and a lot of dependency on federal government, and those are the parts that I'm iffy about. So that is the reason for me separating that tonight, and I want to congratulate you all for this is going to pass tonight. So congrats. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Vasika. And Councilor Campbell.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So in committee last week, I voiced express my support for this resolution. I continue to do so. I will be supportive of it tonight as well. Looking at the specific language, particularly the bullet points at the end, I don't see anything, at least the way I'm interpreting it, it's basically we're asking our congressional delegation to take a second look at what it is that at the federal level they plan to do with our Forest Service district and Forest Service personnel management. And, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that and asking them just, to take a solid look at what it is you plan to do and make sure that, we're crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's. And, certainly as with any government organization, at the federal level, I think there is room for, cutting waste and, for efficiencies and things along those lines. And, we still have to be mindful of that, but, to go back and to, just basically urge our congressional delegation to, take a harder look at this. I'm not seeing a problem with that. I'm not seeing a problem with, just bringing this to attention of our governor or, state congressional delegation with regard to the Forest Service. So I'll be supportive of this resolution, and, hopefully, we get some, more consideration, more thoughtfulness going forward with, what cuts going to happen, to what extent cuts, if any, take place, and to what extent reorganization of the Forest Service takes place. But, I would add in that light, going back to a very similar resolution we've had here a few months ago when we resolved to let our congressional delegation know that, we disapproved of the public land sales that was presented by Senator Leah of Utah. In that particular instance, we did have a measure of success, and Congressman Ryan Zinke was successful. And again, that pulled from an overall federal appropriation spending bill. And quite frankly, haven't made the resolution, haven't seen the result, in consideration of removing public lands. I think, in return, I think it's incumbent upon us to, say thanks, for, being mindful of that consideration, and along with the rest of the congressional delegation, working with Congressman Zinke to, reconsider the sale of public lands, and, likewise with this resolution, to what extent, our congressional delegation could work on this issue. I think is important. So for this particular resolution, I will be in support. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Campbell. Any other comments from council members before we take a vote? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised, then I do believe we can go ahead and do a roll call vote, please.
All right, voting this evening on item 9.1, point C, point B, the resolution of City Council calling for transparency in federal Forest Service reorganization, beginning with Anderson.
Yes.
Becerra.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Carlino.
Yes.
Farmer.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Nugent.
Yes.
Cheryl.
Yes.
And Vasika.
No.
And that's 10 in favor, 1 opposed.
Okay, thank you all very much. Appreciate the conversation, and hopefully where we can go with having a broader, more transparent conversation with our partners at the federal level to help inform our community of what these changes will mean for folks living here and all of us, not only those that work for the Forest Service, but those of us that benefit from that work. All right, next I will move on to agenda item number 10, which is public comment on non-agenda items. The public is welcome to make general comments on items that are not on the agenda during this agenda item. We offer 3 minutes per comment, and we'll go ahead and time you with this little R2D2 machine up here to help you keep track of time. The microphone is on, and please say your name for the record. So whoever is interested in making public comment on non-agenda items, come on up.
BK Montana. You should feel very comfortable at 64% point what? You don't even need a runoff, do you? I looked at the statistics, and when I ask people out there, you look at me, what are you talking about? Nobody seems to pay attention to much of anything except TikTok maybe, or their games and whatever. Things seem to be pretty good. I had a wonderful conversation with an individual of 25 years of experience of credibility. Your proclamation several months ago hit home with her really well. And I'm certainly moving forward to a jury trial, whether OPD wants it or not, with March 16th, because that is considered as a hate crime. And everybody involved seemed to acknowledge that, even public safety, they embraced it. As somebody would say in the past, buck stops here. Well, Utah is a humanity game changer. I listened to ABC, NBC, and a few Republican commentaries. They couldn't say it as well as I'd like to, but I can't say it as to the fact of the matter. Utah is in a humanities perspective.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Spitzmacher. Any other folks wishing to make public comment? Mr. Moore, come on up.
My name's Bob Moore. Y'all have heard me give my opinion on the MRA and what the MRA is doing. Taxes, taxes, taxes. for no reason. None whatsoever. I got a memo here by the MRA for them to vote on at the upcoming meeting of the MRA. What do they want? $1.3 million. I wonder where they're gonna get that from. Oh, out of the blue sky. This memo is like other memos from the MRA. Rush, rush, rush. Because time is of the essence. You got to approve this $3 million. Because time is of the essence. Currently, there's 7.3 million unencumbered in Area 3. I've tried to understand what this was. Something about the Southgate crossing. What good is it going to do? What good is it going to do? Taxpayers have to pay for it. Affordable. Last year, when a couple of people were running for a position, they were running for affordable. They were going to improve the citizens. No, they're not. Didn't have any intentions whatsoever of helping the citizens. I've got two brochures from last year. Anybody want to look at the affordability produced by the people running for city council and mayor last year? You already know what it is. And I've got two brochures from for this year.
Thank you for coming down
Oh,
tonight,
is that
Mr.
okay?
Moore. Thank you for your comments.
You probably guess what the rest of it is.
You're welcome. Anybody else wishing to make public comment on items not on the agenda?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor.
Yes,
Could we have the noise canceling put back on? It's super staticky online.
that request will be made through our folks at MCAT?
Thank you.
You bet. You bet. Thanks, Counselor Jordan. Appreciate you saying something. Do we get? Just looking over here. Ms. Trimble, just want to make sure that that technical request was
Yeah,
made.
it sounds better online.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, any other public comment from folks in the audience tonight before I go to see if there's anybody online?
Hi, my name is Karen Giuliani and I live in Ward 1. And just for a purpose of transparency, I have a few questions. So I'd like to know if a city council representative sells their primary residence in the ward that they're representing, and they change their address to another ward and their mailing address and to another ward, is that representative allowed to continue to represent the ward that they were then elected for, now that they've moved to a different ward? And if so, you know, how long do they get to represent that ward if they're not living in that ward anymore and make decisions, you know, and vote? I was under understanding that, from what I've read, that if a person vacates that ward and that then they I mean, and not vacates the ward, but if they move to a different ward, they're not living in the ward they were elected to, then do they get to still keep making decisions for the original ward that they were in and voted for? So, and if that's true, how long do they get to do that? And if not, how soon do they need to vacate their position on that, on the city council? So those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Giuliani. Any other public comment tonight? Okay, not seeing any in the audience. How about online? Okay, come on up.
Hi, my name is Mary Giuliani, and kind of in alignment with those questions, you started tonight by talking about a proclamation for voters, right, for clear and transparent elections. You said that active, engaged citizens are the backbone to democracy. I could not agree more, and I'm really thankful for Mr. Moore, Mr. Sputmacher, who come out and they comment and they actively engage every week because they are really ensuring that democracy is taking place. So there was this vacancy that took place, and I'm going to read from the Missoula City Council rules for the conduct of meetings and business. This is Rule 31, City Council's procedures for filling a vacancy in an elected city office, Section 8.6, quote, whenever the city council has sufficient advance notice of a future vacancy in an elected city office, the city council shall attempt to fill the future vacancy in advance of the actual vacancy in order to ensure that the elected city office incurs no time period of actual vacancy. So these are the rules that you all have laid out. According to a Missoula Current article that I read, and from what I heard last week, it sounds like we cannot trust all news sources. It's not always accurately reported, so I'm not sure if this Missoula Current article was accurately reported, but it sounds like the city council has a plan to leave the vacancy until the general election in November. So my question, I guess, is according to your own rules, why was there no plan in place to ensure there was no time period of actual vacancy? And then another question that I have is, what is the accountability system set in place for the council to make sure that the council follows their own rules? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Giuliani. Any other public comment? Okay. Not seeing any in the room. Go to online here. And Mr. Larson, please go ahead and unmute yourself. I'll start the timer whenever you're able to do that.
I would like to also comment about the vacancy in Ward 1 and the candidacy in Ward 3 from one of the city council members that's now sitting in Ward 1. Apparently, the state law says that 60 days prior to the election, they have to be moved in. I don't know what's going on with the whole vacancy part with the city council's rules, but it appears as though the election can be contested and there can be a Office of Political Practices complaints before, during, or after the election that can be levied. So I think it is pretty important that the city council follow its own rules, but also follow state law. And I think it'll be pretty interesting because all we have to do is ask, and COPP has to come and figure it out. And you know, that's just kind of the quagmire that we're used to at city council these days. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Anybody else online? Okay. I'm not seeing any other public comment online, and that wraps up our general public comment this evening on items not on the agenda. We'll move on to our communications from the mayor. I do just want to, I won't speak to the city council rules or the implementation of those rules, but I will mention that and again, I'm not speaking on behalf of Councillor Savage, but I was informed when she was exploring the run for Ward 3 that she did seek legal advice, or at least voter election advice and statute information from the county elections office. So I will just say that I'm aware of that because I know that she provided that information to me. And I believe she also, coordinated with our clerk, our city clerk, of course, and our city attorney as well. In regards to other comments this evening, I just wanted to give a shout out to the Hope Rescue Mission. I did their Sufferfest this weekend, which is a gravel ride in the 9 Mile drainage, and it is a fundraiser for the Hope Rescue Mission, in particular the work that they do, such as the temporary safe outdoor space. It was a really good gathering. It was definitely a Sufferfest because it was a long distance, and riding on gravel can take it out on you eventually, but it was really gorgeous and beautiful, and it was really wonderful to take part in one of the many organizations in our community that does great things for folks that are vulnerable and houseless, and really appreciate them continuing on. They have an executive director transition, so they are moving forward, and it's looking good. I will also just further comment that, because in particular there was a lot of interest on this topic last time, that we're moving forward with a public meet and greet at the Southgate Crossing property in October. Just want to make sure that folks are aware of that. Ginny, will we be putting information out on Engage Missoula on that? Great. So Engage Missoula will have a robust set of information, and we'll be putting that out fairly soon because it's already the 15th of September. So more to come on that piece. And with that, I'll wrap up the mayor comments, and I will turn it over to general comments of city council members. And Councillor Campbell, I think I'd like to start with you this evening, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I'd just like to start out with offering a moment of silence for the political violence that we've seen last week with Charlie Kirk, as well as political violence we've seen very recently across the country, be it with Governor Shapiro, with what's happened in Pennsylvania, as well as Speaker Melissa Hortman in Minnesota. I mean, clearly, these were acts of political violence. We need to silence people for either their legislative actions or their words. So I offer a moment of silence. Thank you all very much. So with what happened last week, is it a turning point with this country? I don't know, but what I do know is, we've had political violence demonstrated upon someone in the worst possible manner, being shot in a crowd at school for doing nothing more than having independent thoughts and speaking individual words about, wide range of issues, contentious issues here in the country. And we should be able to feel safe as Americans, as all of us, should be able to have open dialogue and debate about various issues. It's election season here. We've had some of that debate, and, some is more contentious than others, but, we as Americans should feel secure in being able to have dialogue, have debate, and obviously, there's different levels of success with that. And, Mr. Kirk was very successful on a national level. Some people have said, he was gunned down because of, You know, he was a fascist, he was a racist, he was MAGA, a Trump supporter. I feel he was gunned down because he was effective. He was effective going to college campuses. He was effective speaking to the youth of this country. And, was he there to change hearts and minds? I don't know, but he did go there with the purpose of engaging students in open and direct dialogue and offering a chance for folks to come up and speak and debate and being able to, go there to, have an analytical thought, which, I don't know, to me these days in college campuses, it's more about, learning what you're, told to think or told to do or what you're told to think rather than having independent thought of your own. My heart goes out to his family. My heart goes out, as I mentioned too, with Speaker Horton in Minnesota. I mean, there's no cause for that. Again, we have a process of debate, and if you don't like folks in office, we have a process for that too. Voting, getting out and voting. And, something was mentioned tonight in our voter registration day proclamation about good citizenship is respecting the points of view of others. And what happened last week down in Utah was the antithesis of that. Someone felt they couldn't debate or make a point or, blog or letter to the editor or, relay some point contrary to what Charlie Kirk was saying. And they felt their only way to handle the particular situation was to kill him. I hope, we can have some introspection as us as individuals, and not just here in this body, but, across the country. I think we need to have some introspection. I think the words of, the governor of Utah last week were helpful in that regard, that, we need to have, a grounding in, our everyday reality, getting outside, enjoying these, the fall air and, getting your feet in the grass and, turning off the cell phone and, not being so beholden to social media, because I do have those similar concerns with social media, just being an echo chamber and, the algorithms that are there on, various modes of social media that just feeds you more of, what it is that you don't even necessarily have to like or follow or click on, or, some of these are clever enough, you just scroll by, you're scrolling, you see something interesting, you stops, it picks up on that. You turn the volume on, it picks up on that. And it just gives you more and more of that, just consolidation of, a narrow point of view or conspiracies. And, I've heard them, soon after what happened last week, even before this kid was picked up, must have been this group, and all sorts of wild conspiracies that were out about in social media. And, I think like the governor of Utah said, we just need to be cognizant of how that gets in our mind and how that, I think he used the word reprogramming or rewiring of our minds. I think there's some truth of that. And, I hope going forward that we could come together and, take this back to a place where, we could talk to one another. And, I do some of that, I have a side hustle going door to door and talking to people about issues. And, sometimes I get good responses, sometimes not, but it's good to engage people in discussion. We have lively discussions from time to time. And, I enjoy that. And, I don't want to see us lose the ability for us to do that sort of thing. I could go on and on, but I guess enough said about that. I have to segue, and this is a very poor segue, but I just have to bring up an event that's taking place tonight. And everyone here still has about an hour or so to attend, but the Democrat Socialists of Missoula County, which is, part of Missoula County Democratic Central Committee, and they're one and the same, are holding a seminar of how to abolish. This is my time to speak, thank you.
I called point of order. I do believe a point of order is allowed, so we'll take a moment, we'll hear that, and then we'll come back to your comments.
Yes, just inaccurate information in regards to the Democratic Socialists are not a formal part of the Missoula Democratic Central Committee. Just wanted to make sure that we weren't inaccurately putting information on record.
Okay, thank you for correcting the record. Counselor Campbell, please keep going.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, yes, head down to the Elks Lodge, you learn how to abolish the Missoula Police Department. You learn how to abolish the bail system we have here in the city of Missoula and Missoula County. And, you know, although I appreciate the comment, my colleague, my fellow ward mate of Ward 5, it's kind of ironic because, you know, we have candidates here that are, you know, self-avowed Democratic Socialists. But, you know, I find it ironic that nonetheless, the Missoula Democratic Central Committee has endorsed these candidates. And in fact, has in the past contributed to them and continue to support them now. Now, I want to make sure I have a moment here to be absolutely fair to my colleagues. They're not here, they're not present. So I just want to point out that, you know, do I think my particular colleagues have this particular point of view? Their actions speak louder than words, and their actions very recently have been very supportive of the Missoula Police Department. In fact, just, you know, a matter of a month, give or take ago, I brought up an amendment to refund the Missoula Police Department with $25,000 of training money, and these individuals, and I'm sure they'll speak to it as well, you know, supported that amendment, supported returning that necessary training money to the Missoula Police Department, so they continue offering us the most professional service possible. I spoke to that. I'm not going to go and digress into that, but they're supportive of them. They've been supportive of other things. They've been supportive of the police contract for a raise. But the ironic part is that it's the mainstream Democratic Central Committee candidates that same day that voted against the $25,000 of training for the Missoula Police Department. It was those individuals. In fact, there was one member of council here back in fiscal year 21 that voted to remove over $50,000 worth of training from the police department budget for overtime dollars for police training. You can go back and look at the minutes, but, you know, she may speak to that, she may not, but that's 2 times a mainstream Democrat Central Committee sponsored and endorsed and campaign contributed to candidate supported the defunding of the Missoula Police Department. So anyway, you still have about a minute or an hour and 2 minutes to get over there if you want to partake in that, but enough said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Campbell. And Counselor Jones.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's pretty hard to not comment on what happened in the last week. There has been a lot of political violence. There was also a school shooting. You know, I think our democracy is in peril. It's fraying around the edges, and I always try and take a step back and figure out what the heck is going on. Why is this happening? And it is serendipitous, but tonight at the university, there is a talk starting at 7 o'clock. Dr. Robert Putnam, who wrote Bowling Alone. I would recommend you take a look at that book. Take a look at the Netflix documentary called Join or Die. He's a political scientist who has empirically shown that democracy is stronger, democracy functions better, is far more civil when folks are engaged in their community, when they belong to clubs and associations and service organizations, be it recreational, service, or whatever. When we are not watching TV or on our computers or on our phone, but when we are meeting people and talking with people and we are outside of our own circles, but it's a broader circle, so we have to figure out how face-to-face to talk with someone, and we have a common effort we're typically working towards.
we get along better and people don't climb quite so high up their trees. So I think I would rather put my energy into figuring out what the way forward is. As soon as this meeting's over, I'm going to head over to the university. It's at the UC Ballroom. It starts at 7 o'clock tonight. He was supposed to come last spring. He got sick. This is the premier speaker that the Mansfield Center is putting on this fall. The Mansfield Center, located here in Missoula, has Mansfield dialogues that focus on this issue of how to have a strong democracy, how to talk to one another, how to have civil discourse. So sometimes it might be in our own backyard. I agree with Mr. Campbell. I'm sure social media and all sorts of other factors are coming into play into creating the havoc that we have right now. But we got to start figuring out what is the way forward. And we happen to have an incredible speaker talking in Missoula tonight. So I hope folks can go hear that and take a look at the Mansfield Center, which is actively working on democracy. And it's not the louder we shout, the better we're going to be off. No. It's all about how do we have civil discourse, civil conversations, work it through and find the way forward, because we got to get back to that. And we don't seem to be there right now. So just wanted to put that out there.
Excellent, thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Pasika.
Thank you. I have several things I want to bring up today, and I'll try to be quick so Gwen can get over there. First of all, I had the great, I had such a fun time on Saturday going to Viva Montana. The gentleman who came and spoke about it said that is all day, so there's no excuses if you're in town. So I had no excuses, so I went and I learned how to salsa dance and had delicious tacos. It was really fun. Tried to get a t-shirt, but this is their first year, so only volunteers got them. So I'm looking forward to next year. The River Road General Meeting is on Tuesday, September 23rd at 6 p.m. at LaFrey Park. So please bring your kids. It's happening rain or shine, so bring umbrellas as well. It's no secret that I disagree with my colleagues on a lot of things. And in my family, I'm not really the black sheep in there, but like with my extended family, I often have different political views. And last week with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, it brought out a lot of terrible things that happened on the internet. People were saying terrible things, celebrating the death because he had different views and because he was engaging in dialogue. And a former Missoula lawmaker pointed out that if people are so free with their words to celebrate a death because of disagreement, then what do they think about local government leaders that disagree? Do they wish harm on us? Should I start being concerned about expressing my opinion? And no, I'm not going to. I've always been very vocal with that, but it just makes you think, who among us does wish harm on those that don't agree? It's food for thought. We are better than that. With what's been said tonight with social media, the internet, movies, TV, AI. I just read an article about you have, what was it, cognitive debt every time you use AI to write an email or to help you write a speech or something. Every time that you do that, you're not exercising your brain, and you're not exercising your brain. You're honestly getting dumber. Your emotional intelligence and your intellect are decreasing every time that you sacrifice thinking for convenience. So it's just been, it was a wild week last week, seeing some things out of people who I respected, and political, I guess, violence in any way, shape, or form is never the answer. And I just really want everyone to really take a deep look inside and think, like, is this who I really want to be? Is this how I really want to portray myself in front of in society? So it was a horrible thing that happened last week with Charlie Kirk. I feel terrible for all those the students that were there. I wish I did not see that video. I cannot take that back. I do not recommend it. The last thing I wanted to talk about tonight, I do not think I'm going to get through. My friends went through a terrible loss in Florence. And I posted a fundraiser on my Facebook, so if you want to help out the family, please do that. Max was my friend, so thanks.
I'm so sorry, Counselor Vasika. I'm so sorry for that family, and that's a tragedy. Thank you. Whew. All right. Counselor Nelson?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Davis, and we're here for you, Sandy. And please share that link to the fundraiser with all of us.
Please do.
I'm going to echo my colleagues here in saying that I think it's critically important that in our roles on council as elected representatives, that we speak really clearly that the rise in political violence and the assassination of Charlie Kirk is tragic and unacceptable. No matter our political views or differences or ideologies, violence is never acceptable. It's never the answer in our democracy. We have to reject political violence and reaffirm our commitment to peaceful disagreements and discourse for the sake of our democracy. Yeah, that's it for me tonight.
Thank you for your comments, Counselor Nelson. Counselor Sherrill?
Yeah. Thanks, Sandy. I'm very sorry to hear that. And that is just a brutal tragedy. And as parents, and I just can't even imagine what that family is going through. So please do share that link with us. We would like to support them. I would like to support them. I'm just going to echo what my colleagues have said about political violence. I don't agree with hardly anything that Charlie Kirk believed in, but that does not matter. I mean, it does not matter. We should be able to be up here and speak our truths and represent our community. And I know he was an elected official, but if he has ideas and people want to hear him, they're allowed to hear him. This is a democracy. This is part of it. I'm not interested in what he's saying, but people are. We also have someone that shot someone on a college campus, right? I mean, he shot him in a public place. So it's not always your target either, right? I mean, so this is a threat to not just us sitting up here. It's a threat to people that are sitting in the audience. It's a threat to the people that are around it. So I did not see any of those things you saw online, Sandy. But I absolutely do not condone that either. And it's just shocking where our dialogue has gotten. And I stay off a lot of the online stuff because I find it so disturbing. It was a hard weekend. I was going to mention, feels very unimportant now to switch gears like this, but I was going to mention our plans for Wednesday. There is a resolution online. When a seat is vacated on council, once we are notified of that vacated seat, the person is off council. As per last Monday night, I think it was. We are looking, the spirit of the law, we believe, is to fill that vacancy as quickly as we possibly can with a publicly elected person. So this council is a body of 12. It only takes 6 votes to appoint someone to council. That is not representative for Ward 1. So the plan that we are bringing forward on Wednesday would be to suspend our council rules, to swear in the person in November that is publicly elected. So that is what we believe is in the spirit of the law. That is what we believe is in the best interest of our community. If we were to appoint someone, we don't know if this is going to pass yet or not. If we were to appoint someone, obviously we would start that process after Wednesday. We would have them appointed by October. That person would serve for 3 full months. So you would have someone that was elected or appointed by possibly 6 people. We are representative of our community that would serve for 3 full months. In this scenario, we have a publicly elected person in office more quickly. I think that is a great idea. I think it makes sense. I don't think that the law took into account this kind of strange scenario. We appointed Sandy to fill her seat, but she had to run again at the first possible election, right? So that is the idea behind the law, is that we get someone in as a placeholder and we get the person in office that was publicly elected as quickly as possible. I believe that this does that. If it does not pass, which it may or may not pass, because we do need to suspend our rules, so we need 8 votes to do that, we will start the process of taking applications, and we will appoint someone on October 1st. That person will serve through January. That will require 6 votes of council to decide who that person is, and it will require the people to apply for it. So, yes, so that is going to be Wednesday. The resolution is online. It's been online since Friday. Everyone is welcome to take a look at it. And it's at 8 a.m. and I would love for people to show up for that. That'd be great. Come at 8 a.m. And you're welcome to comment on it. So thank you. And again, Sandy, I'm really, really sorry to hear about that.
Thank you, Councilor Cheryl. And I just want to make a comment on one item. You said the person, if you had to do an appointment, would serve through January, but I do believe it's just through the early part of January, because
I'm sorry, yes, until the elected person is sworn in. I don't know if it's January 5th. I don't know what day we swear them in.
somewhere around there,
So-
early January.
This is the way to have a publicly elected person in that seat for as much time as possible.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Becerra.
Thanks. And Sandy, I am so sorry to hear that. I think for any of us with young kids, it's just unimaginable. So I'm sorry. I wanted to go back to the conversation about how we relate to one another, regardless of how we feel about what the other person has to say, what the other person thinks. I think some of you, if not all of you, know this, but I grew up in a dictatorship where freedom of speech was not a given. It was something that people had to work really hard to utilize as a citizen. There are many aspects of a dictatorship that remind me of how important and how imperative it is that we are able to relate to one another in a civil manner and not resort to violence. So, I keep thinking about my kids and we are educating the next generation. And so the actions that we take today will really have an effect on future generations. And so I think it's time that we all come together and think about a way in which we can relate to one another, because those little people are watching us. What we do and what we don't do today will most certainly have an effect in the future. We need to model behavior, and the behavior that I'm seeing right now is just incredibly disheartening. So let's keep talking about how we talk to one another, how we relate to one another, regardless of where we stand on the political spectrum, is all I can offer today. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councilor Becerra. Councilor Anderson.
Thanks so much, Madam Mayor. Obviously, I'm going to echo the comments from my colleagues. It's a tragedy. and to the whole community and the family as well. And homecoming, as someone who's been in a homecoming, it's supposed to be a fun time, and those are the things that kind of mark your childhood and your school years, and to have that be, not only for that family, but for that entire community, it's definitely heartbreaking. There just seems to be a lot of tragedy in this world, and I agree with the sentiments around that, no political violence is tolerable. And, you read the debates of, various previous generations, leaderships, and there was a lot of things that people didn't agree with, and so I don't think it's necessarily that we disagree more now than we've ever disagreed. I think that there's just a mentality of us versus them, and politics has gotten to be a team sport. And if you're a Packers fan, you would never be caught dead cheering for the Vikings. And I just think that doesn't do us any good. I think that we need to remember that we are humans and we love our families, and my heart goes out to obviously Mr. Kirk's wife and his children. And, they will have to live with this, those kids are going to grow up without a dad, and that's not fair, no matter what he said, and no matter what I disagree with what he said. So I think that it behooves us all to just sort of take the temperature down, which then leads me to my second point in regards to, my colleague from my ward in regards to the comments about the event happening this evening. And I think that I understand what you're saying, and you are an avid defender of the Missoula Police Department, and as am I. And we do not agree a lot politically, but we agree on that, and we agree upon the reverence in which we give our first responders. And I look at you as my colleague and my neighbor before I look at you as somebody who's a member of the other political party. And I would hope that you could extend the same to others, because it's not the same. I don't agree. Mr. Kirk said some pretty salacious things, and he's a Republican, and I don't therefore think every single Republican believes that. I don't believe that you probably believe some of the things that he said. And you may do, and that's perfectly fine. And but I don't assume that. And so, I understand your frustration that there are conversations and events happening in our community that may or not be supported by your fellow colleagues on council, but, to kind of, assume that they are because they are somehow related to the same party would basically me saying that all Republicans believe that what Mr. Kirk said. And I don't believe that's the case. And so I think that it gets us back to assuming good intent and one another, and, absolutely encourage you to take up the dialogue with your colleagues around their votes that they have taken. But to, assume that everybody who is now involved in the Democratic Central Committee in Missoula County somehow therefore supports this event that defunds is talking about how to defund the Missoula Police Department, I think, doesn't do us a lot of good in continuing to have dialogue that is productive. And I think that this is an opportunity to kind of maybe reset. So thanks so much. And with that, I'm done. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Nugent.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. Interesting comments all around tonight, and lots of different places to start. A lot of I love being a father. I love being a parent, and I wear that on my sleeve, and a lot of you know that. And if ever I get emotional, this is usually related to my children, whether it be baseball games or tragic events. But one of my favorite parts of my day is middle school starts very early, so I drive my son to school, I drop him off, and I always make him talk to me. And, usually it's just nonchalant stuff, but we were driving to school one day last week, and he asked me who Charlie Kirk was. He had no idea, but of course, he had heard, about what went down in Utah, and he heard different things from his friends who hear things from their parents, and I just think that there's a reminder out there for all of us that our kids are watching, and how we react to things and how we treat people and the dignity of humans, whether we agree with them or not, is maybe more important than ever. Because I will say, setting aside the absolute tragedy of that event, and the fact, as Ms. Anderson pointed out, that his two young kids will no longer, they don't have a dad to be with them and support them, and someone took that away from them, and whether you agree with anything Mr. Kirk said or not, that was not the shooter's choice to make, and that's tragedy. But setting aside even the specifics there, what's been most disappointing to me over the last half a week or week is the race to use a tragedy to fit a narrative. And my comment on that is that seems to be a bipartisan endeavor, because there's just been a lot of awful stuff written and commented. And I am definitely someone that thinks that we have to talk about things in real time. So, it is okay to acknowledge a tragedy and acknowledge things about the person that you agreed or disagreed with. You don't run from that. You don't hide that. But I think the biggest issue with politics right now is the dehumanization of the people participating. And somebody asked me if I was surprised by that, serving at the local level. And, I thought about it for a second. And I said, absolutely not. You read some of the emails that are sent to us. You read some of the comments that are made on posts and social media. If Sandy takes a stand and someone doesn't like it, the stuff they'll write about her on social media is crazy. And people need to step back and say, like, hey, I might disagree with someone, but they're a human. They came to their decisions rationally, and I'm going to state why I disagree with them. But, questioning their intentions, putting a huge scandal on everything, it just, the way we have political discourse in this country is so broken, and I don't know what fixes it, because we are eternally online culture. It's a race to be the first to break news. And, what we've seen in the coverage of the last week is a lot of people got things wrong, but they amplified it, and then other people take it, and then that becomes the narrative before it's even verified or not. So I don't know what we do about it, but I think that acknowledging that this is a problem from the lowest levels of government all the way to the top is maybe a start. Unfortunately, my son is a 7th grader, and by the next day he had seen the video. And the first thought that I thought of outside of, oh my God, and walking through that whole thing was, in our world, that man's children, who are 1 and 3, at some point are going to have to see that video online, because it's never going away. And, I would hope that we can be better than this on some level. I think that's all I have on that topic. Sandy, I appreciate you bringing up your family friend, and the fundraiser is, they're calling it Live to the Max. And, that Max was a 7th grader at Florence. He's a football player. My son's a 7th grader. There's a lot of, connections that kind of have made that one really hit home for a lot of people I know. And I just think that trying to turn that tragedy into a reminder to focus on what matters and to, live to the max and be be there for the people in your life. Nothing will ever take the pain away and the tragedy of that, but I just can only hope that for a good long time, that serves as a reminder for a lot of us in Western Montana to focus on what's important and remember that a lot of the other things that we get all wrapped up on obviously matter, but they're not life or death. And I think that it's good for us to keep that in mind. I think that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Nugent. How about for council members online? I see Councillor Jordan, your camera's on. Do you wish to have any council comments this evening?
Yeah, thank you. Gosh, so many thoughts going through my head as I hear all my colleagues speak. I want to start with Sandy and offer you, Sandy, my condolences. I'm really sorry for your loss and for the family's loss and for the community's loss. Yeah, as a parent, it's just the unthinkable. I would sooner give my own life than see my children lose theirs. And so my heart goes out to that family in Florence. I too condone political violence. There's been a lot of it, and I'm proud at this point to be a Democrat and to see the Democratic Party wholeheartedly opposing political violence, regardless of who it happens to. I've heard none of that coming from the Republican side until tonight, when my colleague Bob Campbell mentioned that it's not acceptable from either side. I'd love to hear more Republicans denounce political violence, but that in and of itself breeds division, and I don't want to do that. When it comes to standing up for one another, I think that we have an obligation on City Council to do that as well. I think that there have been a lot of instances where misinformation has been spread in the news. For example, a recent article from the Missoula Current said that I yelled slurs on the council floor. We all know that's not true. I've never said a slur. And I would love to see some of my colleagues stand up for any instance where the local press is not representing the facts correctly, because that's where this division starts. I also have a lot of thoughts related to, gosh, feeling a little emotional. Apologize. I think I'm going to pass on what I was about to say. I want to thank you, Mayor, for answering the questions from the people who came to the audience. I know that public comment is not supposed to be a dialogue back and forth, but I see a lot of people who see this as kind of their opportunity to come and ask questions, and it's really hard, as per council rules, to sit idly by and only be able to really thank them for their comments. And I understand the reasoning why we don't go back and forth. But I appreciate you sharing that information. And on a final note, I want to just clarify some things. I am definitely a Democratic Socialist, and I am a Democrat. I am a Democratic Socialist largely, Bob and I had a conversation right before this meeting started because he made a comment about DSA in their presentation tonight. I am largely a Democratic Socialist because I believe that our tax dollars should be going toward paying for a social safety net. I do not agree with all of the stances of the Democratic Socialist platform, and largely the one I don't agree with is defunding the police. I've needed to call 911. My daughter had a stalker, and I was able to call the police. And I would never want to defund the police. Now, I'm a big fan of criminal justice reforms, and I'd like to see some criminal justice reforms. And I want to do a big shout out to Chief Collier, who is entertaining some conversations right now with a program that I'd like to see implemented in the police department. And it's a very early conversation, but he's been very open-minded. It would be considered a reform. And I absolutely believe in the police department. And I do not want to abolish the police. And so, Mr. Campbell, you loosely referenced that some of your colleagues were in favor of voting for some things for the police, but you didn't mention the conversation we had right before this where I told you that. And I want it to go on the record that I support the police department and I support all of our frontline services that we need and that we pay for with our tax dollars because we need them. So being a democratic socialist for me is about bang for buck from our tax dollars and ensuring that nobody falls through the cracks. I know I've said this before, but a really big difference between America and Australia is medical bankruptcy. And there are provisions within the Democratic Socialist platform that would fix that. And that's why I'm a Democratic Socialist. And I'm also a Democrat because as I read through the Democratic Platform Handbook, I encompass all of the values that they propose, and I can be both. And I was endorsed by the Democratic Party and the Democratic Socialists for very clear, genuine, honest reasons. And they're not mutually exclusive. And in fact, they could work really well together if some of the barriers and fighting within our own party were to be eliminated. So appreciate everybody's public comment tonight. I'm glad we're all on the same page regarding being opposed to political violence. Makes this a really scary country. And with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Councillor Jordan. Anyone else online? Councillor Carlino? Councillor Farmer?
I'll pass tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome. You bet. Councillor Farmer?
Yeah, I would just quickly say I agree with a lot of my colleagues tonight, so I won't dwell on too much of the same comments, but I want to just offer my sincerest condolences to Sandy and to Max's family. That is a horrendous thing to happen, a tragic event for a community and our neighbors, and I hope that, like my colleague, Mr. Nugent said, I hope this helps us all kind of focus on what really does matter and bring us closer together and take care of our friends and neighbors despite our political beliefs. And I hope that fundraiser brings a little bit of a reprieve for that family and to the community. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Farmer. That does wrap up our City Council general comments on the agenda this evening. And, before I adjourn, I'll just say that tonight's definitely covered a lot of heavy things. And a lot of us don't know what to do all the time, but maybe sometimes it's just taking a breath. Sometimes just taking a breath before we respond can help. And so with that, I hope that everybody has a good and a safe evening. Thanks for coming down tonight, members of the public online and in the audience. Thank you all to my colleagues on City Council, and I'll adjourn the meeting at 7:32 p.m.